My name is Vivian Beaumont. I'm 34 years old. I work in logistics for a medical supply company. My life is structured, predictable, quiet in a way that feels earned. My sister, Kayla Beaumont, is 31. People describe her as free-spirited, emotional, still figuring things out. I describe her differently. Kayla treats every bad decision like a temporary inconvenience someone else should absorb. And for a long time, I did. Not because I wanted to, because it was easier than watching everything fall apart. In the last 4 years alone, I covered $1,180 for her dog's emergency surgery, another $640 when she blew out her tires, $2,100 when she broke a lease and suddenly couldn't make rent. I stored her furniture in my garage for 8 months while she ignored storage warnings like they were optional. Every time, the same script. Family helps family. Don't keep score. She'll get it together. But she never really did. She just learned that if she panicked loudly enough, someone would step in and soften the landing. Usually me. This time, though, she didn't just want money. She wanted my name. It happened at Sunday dinner. My parents' house still smelled like roasted chicken and garlic when I walked in. My mom, Marissa, was plating food at the counter. My dad, Tom, was half watching a baseball game in the living room. And my uncle Darren was already there, leaning back like he had nothing better to do than judge other people's lives. Kayla came in late. She didn't say hello. She just walked straight to the table, dropped a beige folder in front of me and said, "I found a reliable SUV. The bank just needs a cosigner because my rate would be terrible." I opened the folder. $38,640. 72 months. I didn't even make it to the second page. I pushed it back toward her. "No." She laughed like I was joking. "Vivian, at least read it first." I don't need to read a 6-year mistake to know I'm not signing it. The room changed instantly. My mom stopped moving. Darren made that quiet, disapproving sound he always makes when he wants to feel important. Kayla leaned forward, eyes sharp, voice steady in a way that told me she had practiced this. "Family comes first, so sign the loan." And something about that sentence made everything click into place. Not help, not a favor, an expectation, a demand wrapped in guilt. Like if she said family enough times, it would override my judgment. For a second, I just looked at her, at the folder, at the way everyone in the room had already decided what I was supposed to do. Then I stood up, slowly, calmly. I slid the folder back across the table and said, "Then ask family." Silence. Kayla blinked. "What does that even mean?" "It means," I said, "if everyone here thinks this is what family does, one of them can co-sign it. Mom can. Darren can. Dad can." I paused just long enough for it to settle. "I'm not doing it." Darren jumped in immediately. "That's cold. That's your sister." I nodded once. "Exactly. Which is why she should stop asking me to carry consequences she created." Kayla's expression snapped. Tears, then anger, almost instantly. She said, "I always act like I'm better than everyone else because I have a stable job and a quiet life." My mom told me not to be cruel. My dad walked in, glanced at the folder, and said nothing. That silence said more than anything else in the room. Kayla grabbed the papers, shaking now. "Wow, so this is who you are when family needs you." I met her eyes. "No, this is who I am when family wants access to my credit." Then I left. By the time I got home, my phone was exploding. Kayla said I humiliated her. My mom said, "Please call me." Darren said I would regret turning my back on blood. My cousin Brooke said I could have handled it privately. That was the part that almost made me laugh. I had. Over the phone a month ago. And again 2 weeks later when Kayla asked me to just let the bank run numbers. Sunday dinner wasn't the first time she asked. It was just the first time I refused in front of witnesses. Because private pressure hadn't worked. So she escalated it. I didn't respond to any of them. I turned my phone over, sat in the quiet of my apartment, and let the silence settle. For a moment, I almost felt guilty. Then my phone buzzed again. A credit alert. 9:41 p.m. Hard inquiry. Capital Ridge Auto Finance. I stared at it. 10 seconds. Maybe less. Then I called the number. The woman on the other end confirmed there had been a vehicle application submitted that afternoon. My name listed as co-borrower. Same amount. Same SUV. My chest tightened. "Was it signed?" I asked. There was a pause. "Yes, there's an electronic signature on file." And just like that, this stopped being a family argument and became something else entirely. Something colder. Something that didn't care about feelings. Fraud. I froze all 3 credit bureaus before midnight. Saved every alert, every message, every timestamp. And at 12:07 a.m., Kayla sent the text that erased any doubt I still had. "I was going to tell you." Another message followed. It's not a big deal unless you make it one. I stared at the screen in the dark, at the way she minimized it, at the way she expected me to absorb it, like everything else. And that was the moment something inside me shifted. Not anger, not even hurt, clarity. Monday morning, before work, I filed an identity theft report, and I didn't hesitate. Because for the first time, I wasn't trying to fix what she broke. I was documenting it. 3 days later, the fraud department called me back. I stepped outside my office building to take it. The air was colder than I expected, sharp enough to keep me focused. The man on the line didn't give me everything. He couldn't. But he gave me enough. The application came from an email ending in 2219. I didn't even need to think about it. Kayla's favorite 4 digits. Always had been. And the income verification uploaded, he continued, was a pay stub. Looks like it's yours. Dated last year. I closed my eyes for a second. I already knew where that came from. Last spring, when my dad had surgery, my mom asked me to send over a pay stub and my insurance card for household paperwork. Something about organizing documents in case of emergencies. I didn't question it. I sent everything. They were sitting in a shared family folder. Accessible, convenient, and apparently exploitable. Thank you, I said, keeping my voice steady. When the call ended, I stood there a moment longer than I needed to. Not because I was surprised. Because I wasn't. That was the part that bothered me most. I wasn't shocked that Kayla had done this. I was only confirming how. That evening, I went to the police station. In person. I brought everything. The credit alert, the lender details, the timestamps, the messages, especially the one where Kayla said she was going to tell me. The officer read through it quietly, nodding once before he started typing. No dramatics, no judgment, just procedure, which somehow made it feel even more real. By the time I got back to my car, my phone showed 4 missed calls from my mom. I knew what she was going to say before I even called her back. She picked up on the first ring. Vivian, please tell me you didn't file a police report on your sister. Her voice was already breaking. I leaned back in my seat, staring at the windshield. She submitted a loan application with my name on it. It was paperwork, she said quickly. She panicked. She thought if she got approved first, she could calm you down and explain it. I let that sit for a second. Mom, I said, quieter now. It was a $38,640 loan for 6 years. That's not paperwork. She started crying. And not loud. Not dramatic. Just that soft, persistent kind of crying that's meant to wear you down. You're going to ruin her life, she said. Over and over again, Vivian, you're going to ruin her life. Like I was the one who introduced consequences into the story. Like everything before this didn't count. I pressed my lips together, then said the only thing that felt honest. Kayla keeps trying to build her life out of other people's names. I paused. I'm just the first person who locked the door. Silence. Then she said something that stayed with me longer than I expected. I don't know where you learned to be this hard. I almost laughed. But I didn't. Probably from being the one everyone calls when being soft gets expensive. Then I ended the call. Darren texted me not even 2 minutes later. You filing fraud on blood? That's sick. I didn't respond. I just blocked him. Brooke tried next. Different number. Softer voice. She said Kayla was spiraling, that maybe I should withdraw the complaint if Kayla apologized. I listened. Then I asked her one question. If someone used your credit to buy a car and said they were going to tell you later, what would you call that? There was a long pause. Then quietly, okay, when you say it like that, exactly, I said. And that was the end of that conversation. That night at 8:15, my doorbell camera lit up my phone. Kayla and Brooke. Kayla looked different, not polished, not composed. Her hair was pulled back too tight, like she'd been running her hands through it all day. Her eyes were swollen. Brooke stood beside her, shifting uncomfortably. I know you're home, Kayla said, staring straight at the camera. Please just open the door. 2 minutes. I didn't move. Didn't even get up from the couch. I watched through the app, the way you watch something you already know the ending to. Vivian, she tried again, softer now. Please. For a moment, something in my chest pulled. Old instinct. Old habit. Fix it. Smooth it over. Make it stop. But I stayed still, because I knew exactly what would happen if I opened that door. The tone changed. It always did. Kayla stepped closer to the camera, her expression tightening. If you let this go forward, she said, her voice dropping, don't ever call me your sister again. Silence. Still, I didn't move. Behind her, Brooke muttered, Kayla, this is a bad idea. She touched her arm, trying to pull her back. Kayla shook her off. Then she looked straight into the camera one last time. You always wanted to be better than us, she said. A small, bitter smile. Congratulations. Then she turned and walked away. Brooke followed, glancing back once. like she wasn't sure who she should feel sorry for. I saved the footage, added it to the folder, not because I wanted to watch it again, because I was done relying on memory. Now everything had a record. The only person who surprised me was my dad. At 10:32 that night, he texted, "Do not cave. Save everything. Also, change the password on that family folder." I stared at the message for a long second. Then I called him. He answered on the second ring. "She came to me first," he said, before I could even ask. 2 days before Sunday dinner. Of course she did. What did she ask for? Cosign, he said. When I said no, she asked if I'd pull from retirement for a down payment. I closed my eyes. And I said no. A pause. Then, quieter. "Your mother knew she was car shopping. She says she didn't know about the application." I leaned against the kitchen counter, phone pressed to my ear. "Do you believe that?" Another pause. Longer this time. "I believe your mother confuses helping with preventing a crisis," he said finally, "even when the help creates a bigger one." I let out a slow breath. It was the most honest thing I had heard from him in years. That night, I changed every password I had, removed my documents from the shared folder, locked everything down. No more access. No more assumptions. No more blind trust. The next morning, I went to work. Same desk. Same emails. Same routine. But something felt different. I noticed it around mid-morning, between calls, between spreadsheets, between the quiet rhythm of things I could control. I could breathe, fully, easily, like something heavy had been sitting on my chest for years, and I had just taken it off without realizing it. The world hadn't ended. Nothing had collapsed. No disaster. Just one thing had changed. I had said no. And for the first time, I meant it. 2 weeks later, Kayla stopped trying to change my mind. She started trying to change the story. It was subtle at first. A message here, a comment there. Things that circled back to me through other people, always slightly different depending on who was telling it. To some, I had promised to help and then backed out at the dealership. To others, I got jealous because she was finally doing something with her life. My personal favorite was that I had filed a fraud report over a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. Like someone accidentally signs your name to a 6-year loan and everyone just laughs about it later. I didn't respond. Didn't correct it. Didn't chase down every version of the lie. Because I had something stronger than her story. I had documentation. And more importantly, I had distance. Then came the emergency. Thursday afternoon, right as I was wrapping up a report, my phone rang. Aunt Sharon. She didn't call me often. That alone was enough to make me answer. "Vivian," she said, breathless, "you need to come over. Your mom's blood pressure is through the roof. They're talking about taking her to the hospital." Everything in me tightened instantly. I grabbed my keys before the call even ended. The drive to my parents' house blurred together. Every red light felt too long. Every second stretched thin with that familiar, reflexive panic. By the time I pulled into the driveway, my hands were already shaking. I rushed inside. "Mom," I called out. No answer. Then I heard voices. Outside. I stepped through the back door and stopped. My mom was sitting at the patio table, eating watermelon. No ambulance. No hospital. No emergency. Just Kayla, standing in the kitchen doorway, frozen when she saw me. For a second, no one said anything. Then I turned slowly. "Did you tell people Mom was in the ER?" Kayla crossed her arms, defensive immediately. I said she was sick with stress. My mom stood up quickly. "Vivian, I didn't." I held up a hand. "No." My voice came out sharper than I expected. No more wording games. I looked directly at Kayla. "If you use fake emergencies to pull me in again," I said, steady now, "I'm giving everything to my attorney too." Kayla rolled her eyes like I was being dramatic. Like this was all just overreaction. That was the moment it really settled in. This wasn't about fixing anything. This wasn't about misunderstanding. This was strategy. And I was done playing along. I left before dinner. Didn't look back. The following Monday, she escalated again. This time at my job. I was halfway through a meeting when my phone buzzed. Reception. Hannah flashed across the screen. I stepped out to answer. "Hey," she said carefully. "There's a woman downstairs saying she's your sister. She says it's a family emergency." Of course she did. "Don't send her up," I said immediately. There was a pause. She's crying," Hannah added, uncertain. "Still no." Another pause. Then suddenly, Kayla's voice cut through the line. "You're really doing this? At work too?" She must have taken the phone. I closed my eyes briefly, then answered once, "Yes," and hung up. 10 minutes later, security escorted her out. HR called me in afterward. Polite, professional, direct. I gave them the clean version. Police report. Credit dispute. Ongoing situation. No drama, no embellishment, just facts. By the end of the day, her name was on the do not admit list. That should have been enough. It wasn't. That same night, I got an email. Gmail account. Subject line, demand for damages. I opened it and just stared. It claimed I owed Kayla $8,600 for emotional distress, lost vehicle deposit, ride shares, missed work, reputational harm. Reputational harm. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was exhausting. The footer was wrong. No bar number. A misspelled word in the signature block. It wasn't even a good fake. I forwarded it to Mason's brother, a real attorney. He called me 10 minutes later, laughing. This isn't from a lawyer, he said, but you need one now. I didn't argue. I hired him that night. $900 retainer. Cease and desist. Document review. Escalation if needed. Best $900 I had spent in years. The letter went out 2 days later. Formal. Precise. No contact. Not at my apartment. Not at my workplace. Not through family. No false legal threats. No interference. Everything documented. Everything referenced. Everything real. Funny thing, Darren went completely silent after that. No texts. No opinions. Nothing. But someone else reached out. Someone I didn't expect. Nolan, Kayla's boyfriend. We had never been close. He was quiet, polite. Usually looked like he was carrying something heavier than he said out loud. Hey, he said when I answered. I didn't know the full story. I didn't say anything. Just let him talk. She told me you refused to help with a basic used car, he continued. Not a $40,000 SUV. And definitely not this. He exhaled. Then added, she tried something similar last year. With me. That got my attention. What do you mean? A furniture financing app, he said. Used my information. I caught it early. And he hesitated. She cried. Said she panicked. Said she didn't think it would go through. Of course she did. And you let it go. Yeah. A pause. I shouldn't have. No, he shouldn't have. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Another pause. Longer this time. Because she keeps saying you ruined her future, he said quietly. And I think you just stopped funding it. I leaned back in my chair. Let that settle. Because he was right. That was exactly what this was. Not betrayal. Not cruelty. Not abandonment. Just the end of access. 2 nights later, my mom came to my apartment. Alone. She was holding a glass container. Baked ziti. Of course she was. Food had always been her way of saying things she didn't know how to say out loud. She sat at my counter, hands folded around the container like it was something fragile. I saw it, she said finally. The application. I didn't respond. She swallowed. Your salary, your address, the signature line. Her voice cracked. Then quietly, I gave her the pay stub. I looked at her. Really looked this time. Not as my mom. Not as someone I needed to protect. Just as someone who made a choice. She said the bank needed it for insurance comparisons, my mom continued. I didn't think... I know, I said. And I did. That was the problem. She didn't think. She just helped. Like she always had. Like all of them had. And this was where it led. Tears slipped down her face. Not dramatic. Not performative. Just quiet. For the first time, I believed it. She wasn't crying because the family was falling apart. She was crying because she finally understood what she had helped build. She looked up at me. If she apologizes, would you drop it? The question hung there. Heavy. Familiar. Dangerous. I shook my head. No. Her shoulders sank. Why? Because apologies had never fixed anything before. Because consequences were the only thing Kayla had never been forced to face. Because if I gave in now, nothing would actually change. She needs to learn this one, I said softly. My mom nodded. Slowly. Like she didn't like it, but she understood. She left a few minutes later. The ziti stayed on the counter, untouched. That night I sat in the quiet again. But it didn't feel heavy, didn't feel tense. It felt clear, like everything had finally come into focus. And for the first time, I wasn't waiting for it to fall apart. 3 weeks after the cease and desist, Kayla violated it. Of course she did. It was 11:47 on a Tuesday night when my doorbell camera lit up again. At first, I thought it was a delivery. Then I saw her, pounding on my door. Not knocking, not asking. Pounding hard enough that the sound echoed down the hallway. Vivian, she shouted, open the door. I didn't move. Didn't even mute the TV. I just watched. Because I already knew how this ended. A door down the hall opened. My neighbor stepped out, irritated. Hey, you need to stop. Kayla ignored her. Kept pounding. You think you're better than everyone? She yelled. You think you can just destroy the family and walk away? Still, I didn't move. My phone was already in my hand. Non-emergency line dialed. Camera recording. When the officers arrived, she was still there, still yelling, still trying to force something that no longer existed. They gave her a trespass warning on the spot, she argued. Of course she did. But it didn't matter. For the first time, someone outside the family was setting the boundary, and it held. The next morning, my attorney filed for a protective order. Not because I wanted to escalate, because I had already tried everything else. Fraud complaint, office incident, third-party pressure, fake legal threats. Now this. There was nothing left to talk through. Court was the following week. Kayla showed up in a cream sweater, hair pulled back, minimal makeup, like she was trying to look harmless. My mom was there, so was my dad. They didn't sit together. That said more than anything else. Kayla's attorney went first. He tried to frame it as a family misunderstanding. Stress, miscommunication, financial hardship, emotions running high. I sat there and listened, calm, still. Then my attorney stood up, and everything shifted. Doorbell footage, office incident report, the fake demand email, the text. It's not a big deal unless you make it one. Each piece laid out, clean, precise, undeniable. Then the judge looked at Kayla and asked one question. Did you or did you not submit a financing application using your sister's information without her permission? Kayla hesitated, tried to redirect, said she believed I would eventually agree, said she was just trying to hold the car while the family worked things out. The judge didn't blink. That is not an answer. Silence. Then, finally, yes. And just like that, everything collapsed. The order was granted. 1 year, no direct contact, no third-party contact. Stay away from my home, my workplace, my life. The fraud case was referred forward because the lender had preserved everything. Outside the courtroom, my mom approached me slowly, like she wasn't sure she was allowed to. She reached for me. I let her touch my arm. That was it. My dad gave me a small nod. You did the right thing. Simple. Clear. True. A month later, Brooke called. Kayla had accepted a diversion agreement. No conviction if she completed financial counseling, paid penalties, and stayed out of trouble. That was enough for me. I didn't need revenge. I needed distance. And proof. The family fallout was strange. Darren stopped inviting me to anything, which honestly improved my weekends. Aunt Sharon sent me a long message about grace. I replied with one line. Grace without accountability is how we got here. Brooke apologized. A real apology. No excuses. No pressure. Just acknowledgement. My mom started asking to meet for coffee every other Sunday. No ambushes. No guilt. Sometimes we talked. Sometimes we didn't. It was awkward, but it was honest. My dad and I were better than we had ever been. Turns out, when one person stops pretending, everyone else has to choose. Get honest. Or get louder. He chose honest. As for me, life got quiet. In the best way. I got promoted in January. Operations manager. $11,000 raise. I joined a Saturday running group. Started sleeping better. Breathing easier. And I met someone. Ethan Cole. I met him through a friend. He's steady. Kind. The kind of man who doesn't try to convince you of anything. He just shows up. Consistently. The first time he texted to make sure I got home safe. I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it felt so simple. So normal. So peaceful. And I realized how long it had been since anything felt like that. From what I hear, Kayla still tells people I betrayed her, that I chose pride over family, that I destroyed something that mattered. That's fine. People who need that version can keep it. The paperwork says otherwise. The court says otherwise. My life says otherwise. Because the truth is, this was never about the car. It was about the system, the pattern. Kayla needed. Everyone panicked, and I paid. Sometimes with money, sometimes with time. Almost always with peace. And the moment I stopped paying, everyone acted like I had broken something sacred. But I didn't break the family. I broke the pattern. And once that pattern broke, everything became clearer. Who only called when they needed something. Who confused enabling with love. Who wanted harmony more than honesty. Who only respected boundaries when a judge enforced them. Family matters. That's exactly why it has to mean more than obligation. More than guilt. More than access. Shared blood is not permission. Love is not automatic entry. And helping someone is not the same as drowning beside them. If you've ever been made to feel selfish for having a boundary, you probably weren't dealing with love. You were dealing with entitlement, wearing a family face. And once you see it, you can't unsee it.